Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da. I think me and Salman were in Dubai earlier this year, and somebody said, which of you is ant and which of you is deck? But anyway, on that lighter note, going through crises. And
we are a jungle.
Crises, and it's not just one crisis, but it's a plural of crises, a myriad of global crises. Is it a crisis which began, as the West would say to you, from the subprime mortgage, the housing bubble? Or is it something more structural, something more basic, something in the fabric of the present day socio-economic system that is at the core of this? You'll find, if you just do any kind of search on Google, as I just printed something off this morning, just to illustrate things. Financial crisis 2007, 2008. That's what the West would say to you, and that's what you read in the media. Worst financial crisis since the Great Depression, 1930s. So much so that this led to the total collapse of large financial institutions. Lehman's comes to mind, and many others. Bailout of banks. And we've got a table here, and we'll show you how much effort and how much money has gone into that bailout of banks. Downturn in stock markets, and it goes on. Every possible segment of the current modern financial economy suffered. And it's got a human element to it. It's not just corporate, but it's actually something that relates to me and you. Evictions, foreclosures, unemployment. The whole of this, which is personal to us, began with the financial crisis. We read in literature, Islamic economics or economics generally, that there's two types of economies. You have the financial economy, as you see it today, and you have the real economy, the real sector. If you look at the financial economy, or Western economy generally today, the last 30 years in particular has meant that there's been a huge shift across the industry. In fact, the industry has been service-based. And when we say services, we mean financial services. 80% of US economy is financial services based. And financial services, as some of you here sitting here who are involved in the sectors, and myself and Sheikh Salman Badr al-Hassan, we both know that from our experience working in law firms, dealing day to day with capital market instruments, products. Sheikh Badr mentioned derivatives and swaps. I see that a lot at Linklaters and other firms, even though we have a lot of crises. Names have changed. You probably don't see the word CDO as much as you used to, collateralized debt obligations. It's a bit like when one prime minister is out of fashion, they replace him with another name. So CDOs are out and there's something else now. There's a lot of repackaging. Repackaging is basically getting structured notes, bonds, repackaging those and selling those to someone else. So say you might buy US denominated bonds and sell those in yen denominated structures. And basically it may be a bank which sets a counterparty, a swap party, and it's actually an arm of the bank, and they deal with each other. And we'll go through some statistics, and you'll be surprised how much there is. Regulation. I just picked up something else for regulation, and just throw some names at you in terms of regulation, governance and structure. This is, you see in the media and you see the professionals and experts talking to you and saying the solution for this problem is what? Lack of regulation? Or sometimes they go to the other extreme and say it's too much regulation. Governance issues. Do we need more governance? We started off with a shareholder model, which was US, UK, went to a stakeholder model. Now they talk about stewardship, which is close to Islam and Islamic principles, the Stewardship Code of 2010. Transparency, ethics, should we bring ethics back into economics? All of this literature, and you see so many things happening. You have the Leikenen report coming out of the EU, talking about governance and what we should do, the initiatives. You have the Bank Recovery and Resolution Directive from the EU. You have the Vickers report in the UK, and that's topical. Everybody reads about that if you've been following the FT. And then you have the Dodd-Frank Act in the US. All of this to regulate the behaviors of banks and other financial institutions. But as you can see from the line at the bottom of the slide, what they've ignored, whether inadvertently or intentionally, we're not here to say that this is all by design and there's a secret hand behind all this. We'll leave that to you to decide. But it's a structural problem. It's a systemic problem. And it's not just riba or interest, which we'll talk about, and Sheikh Badr will mention to you gambling and uncertainty, but it's the fact that the whole economy is based on debt. We get told that you get this acronym Tina Turner. Somebody said, well, there's no alternative to Tina Turner as well. But anyway, Tina, there is no alternative to current crisis. What do we do? The problem is, if we don't address the roots, which is an inherent problem, a systemic problem, it's a contagion, we'll never ever, no matter what, you find people like Adair Turner, Lord Adair Turner, the former FSA chairman, fantastic reports coming out of that, on pensions, on banking crisis, 300 pages long, talking about macroprudential regulation, a regulatory regime which looks at based on macroprudential systems. And there's all sorts of, graphical demonstrations, a lot of evidence and data there, but you're just scratching on the surface. It's a bit like having a problem, a medical problem, and you just get a bit of lotion to apply to the surface. It's not going to treat it. So unless we just carry on doing the same old papering over the cracks, plastering over the cracks, we will never be able to deal with the problems. And Islam, not just in finance and economics and commerce, but in every aspect of our life, goes to the root of the problem. If you actually study the jurisprudence, the rationale and the philosophy behind every single hukum of Allah Azza wa Jal, you'll find that there is wisdom behind it. And it's there to treat the problem from the grassroots. Systemic problems. I mentioned some of this earlier. We have some basic stats here. The service sector is over 80% of the US economy, the leading economy in the world. The service sector is 80% of that. And out of that service sector, the financial service sector is the largest service sector. So we're talking about banks, we're talking about insurance companies, a whole host of funds, pension funds, hedge funds. That's all financial services sector. And this is something, the way it's done as well, it's not as if you can regulate it, because most of the banking activities are what? Off balance sheet. Structured finance, securitization, you name it, it's off balance sheet through doing SPVs, special purpose vehicles, which are often entities. They're not actually entities that own any assets. And to avoid any withholding tax, you'd utilize certain jurisdictions, Caymans and Jersey, set up an SPV just for the purpose of transferring assets. There is no true sale. We had a huge issue with Lehman Brothers and the issue of true sale, and how did the lawyers write that off, what kind of legal opinion was given, and this goes on. So the financial sector is now become a parallel economy, and so much so that people don't look at productivity, the real economy, the assets, and there's more activity in the financial economy. This is something that's going to shock you. Let's look at the main markets. Size of the world's bond markets. So you have two types of capital markets. You have the equity capital markets, that's what we call stock markets, the share market. And you have the bond market, where you have commercial paper, bond, and any other debt securities that are traded. Size of the world's bond markets is 45 trillion. I was working on a deal, and I asked the bank, why are we swapping this bond for another bond, and yet we haven't got to maturity. And it was just basically, there was no financing needs there. It wasn't done to actually, you would think bond market, you go there to the bond market or to equity market for financing. If you do an IPO, you do it to raise finance. It wasn't to do that with that. It was actually to do with getting around payments, restructuring. So bond markets stand at 45 trillion. Stock markets slightly above that, 51 trillion. But here's the magic figure. The world's derivatives market, $480 trillion. That's 30 times the size of the US economy and 12 times the size of the entire world economy. Derivatives. I was looking at a deal recently. Just in 2012, in a particular law firm, 1,211 derivative deals just by one firm. It's amazing. And each one was minimum 15 billion. So it's amazing the amount of, and there's no activity behind this. There's no financial needs.